Hey everyone, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Penimage. One of those days where we have to watch for severe weather. One of those days I like to say you have to be weather aware. We've got the setup in the atmosphere where today is not just going to be normal storms. The storms that develop today could be potentially severe. And yes, tornadoes are a threat in this setup, but there's a couple things that could determine how much of a threat that is as we get later into the afternoon. Let me show you the updated severe weather outlook. Notice from yesterday we were in the low range. I kind of expected this to happen overnight. I started looking at the data last night, but the entire area upgraded to a medium threat for severe storms and a small section down here in the high threat. That includes most of Columbia down to Myrtle Beach and does include parts of Lancaster and Chesterfield counties. That's the high risk for severe storms in our area. Now let me show you what's going on right now and why there's a couple factors that could determine how widespread the severe weather threat and really how widespread the tornado threat is. Because if you look, we've got a complicated setup. We've got a old wedge front here. We've got a little trough here, and there's likely a warm front in here. Both of these are moving north, and so is this front. Right here that's stable or stationary. At the same time, here comes a cold front and a really potent area of low pressure. So these fronts to the east are over us now. These are really like the fuel sources. These get north. This will allow for ample, warm, humid air to surge north. And we're already seeing that, honestly, developing across South Carolina. It's just a matter of how quickly this air mass can transport north. And if we see any sun today, and I mean any, like just breaks here and there, then it's game on for some potentially severe storms. I'll loop this a couple of times because you can see how vigorous this low and vorticity maximum, we call it, is back to the west. And that's where we're concerned about the potential for possibly tornadoes developing ahead of this main line. I wouldn't be surprised at some point this morning to see another tornado watch issue just to our south and possibly eventually up into this area by this afternoon. Let me go into some of the model data because the first thing I'm going to show you is the shear. This is the amount of basically twisting of the winds we have in the atmosphere today. And you can see they're pretty much off the charts over the Carolinas. I mean, that is a lot of wind shear. And you can see a couple waves of this high wind shear atmosphere moving through. So there could be several waves. That's the thing I should caution as well. It won't be one storm and done. There could be several waves of storms moving through. And I'll show you what the future radar looks like just so you have an idea going into the afternoon. We'll go into about the lunchtime hour here. And you can see this is around noon today. Give it a second to load here, if it'll load. There we go. You can see how the storms are going to be setting up to our southwest in this general direction, and they'll be pivoting or rotating around the low, which is going to be back in here. So as we go towards 1 o'clock this afternoon, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you could see widespread storms, maybe severe. And again, some of these could be tornadic. Again, I'll go out to 3 o'clock. 3, 4, 5, 6. And notice there's still storms out there in several waves. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it really takes until 11 o'clock for this to move out. And just to show you what we call updraft helicity, this is a sign of storms. At least the model thinks could have rotating updrafts. Not always tornadoes, I should remind you. Rotating storms can produce other severe weather and often do produce tornadoes, but this is just indication of some of these rotating storms tracking through. This is 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So you see some of those threats as these strong storms are moving through this afternoon. The one thing that we're going to be watching is that instability or fuel for thunderstorms. How much of that are we going to get? Looking at the model, what we call CAPE or thunderstorm fuel, notice how initially this morning there's not a lot. We got that cloud cover drizzle mist, which is helping us out, but as we get into the afternoon, that surge of fuel moves in, and you can see even some oranges and reds showing up. That's why areas south and east of Charlotte have the highest risk for tornadoes, because that's where there'll be the most instability this afternoon. So this is the threat as far as the map. Here are the actual threats broken down. Damaging winds, medium threat. Hail and tornadoes, still at the low end, but I'm going to show you a map in a second. This is a pretty high tornado threat compared to average or normal. These are the hail chances. 15% chance of 1 inch or larger diameter hail within our area. These are the tornado chances I was talking about. Typically 2% we kind of keep an eye on. Yeah, there could be an isolated tornado. Once you get to 5%, I know it isn't huge. Trust me, it seems very small, but 5%, that means there's a 5% chance that a tornado could touch down within 25 miles of any point on the map. So if you think about it that way, that's a pretty significant impact if there's a 5% chance. 10, 15 is really, really significant, but 5% definitely has your attention. And then obviously the high wind threat, you can see 15% chance of damaging winds, but there's a 30% chance down in this red area. So it'll be a lot of watching this today, see how much sunshine we get. Again, this air mass to our south is the key to this whole setup. This very warm, humid, unstable air mass gets in here. We won't need a lot of fuel today. This is one of those days where we've got basically a whole bunch of ingredients, and we just need that ignition, that trigger. And the trigger doesn't have to be great. It just has to be a little bit of sunshine and heating of the day. And even with these clouds down here, you see the breaks. The atmosphere is pretty warm and humid down there. I'm going to turn on the surface observations real quickly just so you can get an idea. These are the dew points. Look, in the 70s down there. Two things to look at for severe weather. Not only warm air at the surface, but warm, humid air. Dew points are in the low 70s to our south, and temperatures are already in the mid to upper 70s. So we get close to 80 in some of these spots. For us, mid 70s with 65, 68 degree dew point, the atmosphere will be ripe for severe weather this afternoon. So please stay weather aware. It's one of those days. If you're out and about, make sure your phone is charged. Make sure you follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Please tell your friends to do so. I think, this is one of those things. I don't beg for likes or Facebook mentions or anything. Just tell people to do it for severe weather safety. They can ignore me the rest of the time. But please, this is a day to stay weather aware, because this is potentially a pretty significant severe weather outbreak here in the southeast. I'll be all over this all afternoon. Got my daughter's graduation this morning, but I'll be heading to work right after, and I'll see you this afternoon, likely at Facebook Live from the station, starting at probably 2 o'clock this afternoon.